Hey, what's up everybody? It is Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and welcome to another edition of MXGP Reviews. We're finally doing this again. It's been a long time. I'm playing MXGP 2019, and we're going to break down a lot of this crazy MXGP action that's been happening of late. I know I've been missing out on a lot of these GP reviews. I'm going to try to get back into a regular swing of these and at least try to update you guys on a couple things that have happened. As I've mentioned before, having a newborn in the house, I don't often get up early enough to watch the GPs live anymore, just because it's so time consuming how often a newborn wakes up in the night and stuff like that. But fortunately, she's been sleeping a little bit more through the night lately, so that's been a little bit better. But that's just why it's been so tough to do these, honestly. I like actually watching the GP and talking about what I've seen, but I haven't really got much of a chance to do that lately. So a lot of this is I haven't seen all of the GPs lately. I've watched quite a bit of it, but I haven't seen every single moto. And I'm going to try to break down everything that I have seen so far and talk you guys through some of the crazy things that have happened of late as we move into kind of the middle part of the season. So first of all, there's been a couple rounds that have happened since I last did a video, obviously, right? I did a video that was recapping Great Britain, I believe was the first video that I did, and I did not do one for Valkenswaard. And then they also raced 3 Latvian GPs, and now they've raced 2 at Faenza, the Italian Grand Prix, and the MXGP of Città di Faenza, which is the city of Faenza Grand Prix. And they're going to have on Sunday, this coming Sunday, the MXGP of Romagna Italia. So that is, I believe, the province that Faenza is in that they're having the GP named after. And I actually had a talk with a couple of people that I work with about why don't they just call it like MXGP of Italy 1, MXGP of Italy 2. And I kind of get it because F1 has done the same thing for years too, like province names and city names and stuff like that before they think about naming it anything other than a region-based thing. So keeping it to the World Championship scale and naming it after geographical regions is, I don't know, kind of the status quo. But anyway, this Faenza track that they're racing, I actually am kind of happy that they've gone there. Like, it's, to me, pretty cool that they're back at a track that they used to go to. Faenza was actually a track that was late in the season back in the, I think like 2008, 2009 was one of the first years they had it, and then 2012 was the last year they had the Faenza circuit as an Italian Grand Prix. Obviously, they go to places like Maggiora and Mantova and Pietra Marata a little bit more often now. And I'm playing on Imola, so this is not Faenza, but I will be doing the MXGP of Romagna Italia review in Sim. So I wanted to play MXGP 2019 to review this, and then when the Sunday race happens, I'll do the review in Sim on actual Faenza, because that exists in Sim. But anyway, enough about all this like roundabout stuff. Let's talk about the racing and basically just go right into the Grand Prix that just happened. Now, the big storyline from the MXGP of Faenza was what happened to Jeffrey Herlings in free practice. About 4 laps in, the current points leader and multi-time world champion out of the Netherlands crashed in a kind of like a weird section of the crash, just kind of overjumped a table and then swapped coming into a corner and actually got spat onto the ground pretty hard and was laying there pretty motionless for a long time. They eventually got him backboarded and moved off the track, and he would need to be life flighted is what we normally call it here in the States. I think they call it air evac or medevac in a helicopter to a local medical facility, but it sounds like that was just for some initial concerns that they had. But initial MRIs have come back, and it doesn't seem like Herlings actually did break anything just yet. He has some severe compression in his neck and back and a hematoma in his shoulder from initial reports done by Pit Byra of the KTM camp over there. But he is going to go back and get second MRIs done, multiple more MRIs coming for Herlings. And it was announced earlier today, actually, as I'm doing this, that Herlings will miss the next 4 Grand Prix at least, as he awaits, to go back under the MRI and see what else is potentially wrong. So he's going to miss this Sunday's MXGP of Romagna Italia, and then he's going to miss the triple header at Mantova, which is coming up at the end of September and into October. So, quite honestly, that should be the end of Herlings' 2020 championship campaign. unless things really hit the fan. Interestingly enough, he did not race the MXGP of Faenza and still has the points lead by 22 points over Antonio Cairoli. So, I mean, technically speaking, he, I guess, still maybe even could have the points lead after the MXGP of Romagna Italia if Cairoli has a bad day and Geyser has a bad day, because Jeremy Seawer is still 47 points, I think it is, behind him. 47 or 46 points behind it. It's a big gap, and he would need to go 1-1 basically to pass him. So if Geyser and Cairoli have bad days on Sunday, Herlings might still have the championship lead, which is kind of crazy to think about. But anyway, looks like it's pretty well over for him. So now the attention shifts in the MXGP class to who can step up. And the first man to put his name in the hat in the race itself, going 2-2 for his first ever career overall victory, was Jorge Prado. Now, Prado is actually pretty far down in the championship standings. He is, I think it's like 67 or 66 points back or something like that. So it's going to be a big haul to get around Herlings, but behind Cairoli, he's actually only 44 points, I believe it is, or 40, keep doing my math wrong. No, it is 44 points that he's behind Cairoli. So has more of a chance to get to Cairoli than to Herlings if Herlings was to come back. But if Herlings is out, then yeah, Cairoli only being 44 points ahead of Prado is not an unreachable number, that's for sure. And we've seen in the past how riders who have the championship lead get hurt and things like that, so it's not out of the question that there's more injuries still to come. But this championship door is so wide open. If you take Herlings off the top of the points table, Geyser was able to win a moto, the second moto at Faenza, and kind of get his season back on track. He had a weird moment at Faenza too, where apparently the goggle strap broke on his goggles in the first moto, and his goggles just fell off his face. So instead of like throwing the goggles because of a malfunction or something like that, he didn't have a choice. The goggles literally just popped off his face, and he had no goggles for most of the second half of the race. And if you've watched any of this racetrack that they have in Faenza, it is a very like rough, rocky, hard-packed track. They're watering it a lot. They're trying to make it kind of, you know, moist and deep in the morning so that it ruts up very nicely for the afternoon motos. But it still is pretty hard-packed and rocky, and that's kind of nuts to have to do so much of that moto without goggles and probably taking roosts and other things from riders ahead of him. But he did come back and win the second moto, and now sits just 4 points behind Antonio Cairoli, who, provisionally speaking, kind of has the points lead in this championship. And like I said, the door of opportunity has suddenly burst wide open for everybody else, whereas Herlings had a 60-point lead coming into this Grand Prix, or this, you know, sequence of Grand Prix. He now is going to be out, and Cairoli, if he has a points lead, has a 4-point lead over Geyser. Cairoli back to Jeremy Seawer. I think, like I said, it's, let me think. Got to do quick math here. It is 34 points? No, 24 points back to Jeremy Seawer in what is now essentially third. And then Arminius Jasikonis is 31 back of Cairoli. And then Glenn Koldenhoff is 37 back of Cairoli. So that's kind of the order as it sits right now. And you could probably draw up a good reason why any one of those guys has a chance at winning this championship. For Cairoli, it would be a monumental 10th MXGP and MX2 combined world title, which would equal him all time for Stefan Everts with 10 world championships. He obviously already picked up his 90th Grand Prix win, as did Jeffrey Herlings at the first round in Italy, the MXGP of Italy that was ran this past Sunday. Herlings also picked up his 90th Grand Prix win, so now they are tied. But Cairoli, I think, is still trying to dethrone some of Everts' records, and suddenly he's in a position where he may have one of the best opportunities ever to at least get to 10 world titles and equal Everts. So I wonder if that's going to kind of light a fire under Cairoli going into the second half of the season to kind of step up the game, I guess, a little bit and start challenging. Now, in Faenza, Cairoli went 4-3, and most of the second moto, he's putting a lot of pressure on Prado, who ended up finishing second and winning the overall, to try to take away that second spot and at least limit the damage that he was giving up to Tim Geyser, who, like I said, was winning that final moto. So because of that, Cairoli does still seem like he's kind of got the same speed that he had coming out of Kegums in Latvia. Whether or not that translates into moto win speed again, like he was able to accomplish at the second Latvian Grand Prix, I don't know yet. It's going to depend. I guess the one positive note for Cairoli at this point is there's still, let me think. There is still 11 Grand Prix currently scheduled, I think is the number. And 7 of them, there's 12 Grand Prix still coming, and 7 of them are going to be on Italian soil. So this Sunday's MXGP of Romagna, Italia, and then the 3 in Mantova and the 3 at Pietra Marata as well are going to be on Italian soil, which is home field advantage, I guess, for Cairoli. Now, Pietra Marata is also pretty close to Slovenia, where Tim Geiser is from, and oftentimes Geiser has a strong contingent of Taiga 243 fans come and cheer him on, and he always seems to raise his game there, and that's going to be later in the season, so I guess that could be one of those things where Geiser might have a stronger track down the stretch. But Mantova, Cairoli has also won before and has been very strong there. I think you could make a case for him or Geiser to win this championship right now. Like this door of opportunity that Herlings has burst open by crashing himself out of the series is very interesting because there's so many different storylines developing here. Like Jeremy Seawer winning his first career moto and being, probably the next best guy behind Herlings on Sunday, and then wins the first moto and then has a little bit of troubles in the second moto, had a fall and lost some positions, but still, like, you could say Jeremy Seawer, who's only 24 points down, is like, man, maybe he has a shot at winning this world title out of nowhere. Jasikonas, Koldenhoff, Prado now just won a Grand Prix. Like, so many guys still pretty close in points and mixed into this whole thing, and this is going to be just awesome to watch down the stretch. If you're not already tuned in and paying attention to MXGP, I would highly recommend it because the next 2 months of racing is going to be electrifying stuff. Like, I kind of can't believe that this is how it's going to shake out after it looks so bleak with Herlings pulling out that lead, but we got a championship, ladies and gentlemen. I have no idea which direction it's going to fall, but whatever way it does fall, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch in this MXGP class. So maybe it's Cairoli, maybe it's Geiser to win yet another world title, maybe Prado in his rookie season breaks the mold of opportunity and starts clicking off wins in the second half and pulls his points total up. But I honestly do kind of think maybe that Jeremy Seawer has more of a shot than people would probably give him credit for here. He has been one of the best riders on track for many of the Grand Prix this year. Even going back to the Latvian rounds, he was pretty much one of the fastest riders on the track at a couple of them, and obviously had a crash that really derailed his weekend there. But, the first Grand Prix in Italy was great. The second Grand Prix wins a race. Like, if he goes 1-1 on Sunday, suddenly you're kind of thinking, like, man, Jeremy Seawer, he's not that far behind Cairoli in points. And if he's going to do, 1-1 motos and start clawing those points away, oh boy, that is going to be interesting to watch for sure. But anyway, MXGP class going to be nuts. If I had to pick a winner for this Sunday's third race in Faenza, I'm going to pick Geiser just because I think he is going to kind of look at the opportunity in front of him and seize it, if you will. If we look back to last year when Herlings was out before the season even started, Geiser, I think, came into that season the most prepared he'd ever been, and it looked like he was the most fired up he'd ever been as well. And I don't think it was specifically because Herlings was injured, but I felt like that was like him looking at it as like, man, this is my world title almost to lose. Like, Cairoli is getting up there in age. I think he's 35 this year, and if there's any time that you can beat Cairoli straight up, it's when he's starting to get to his old age. And Geiser looked like he wanted to take advantage of that fully last year, which he did. And he had the world championship lead by the time Cairoli crashed it away at Latvia, of all places. So I look to Geiser to try to seize this series and kind of grab the bull by the horns, if you will. The only problem with him is the exact same problem that Jeffrey Herlings has always had, and that's Tim Geiser hits the ground a freaking ton all the time. The difference with him and Herlings, though, is that it seems like every time Herlings hits the ground, he gets hurt. But Geiser's kind of like Gumby, and he seems to have like 4 or 5 good crashes in him before he finally hits the ground hard enough to get hurt. So I guess that's the positive to take from it, is that he still can probably crash and be okay, but you do have to look at it as like, this guy can crash and hurt himself at any time. Whereas I don't necessarily feel that way about Cairoli, and I really don't feel that way about Seawer, who has been one of the most consistent Grand Prix threats for years. Like he has one of the longest running Grand Prix race active streaks, or whatever it's called. So yeah, I mean, Seawer, I think fully is going to be healthy and battling for this championship down the stretch, but I don't know. I think Geyser's going to try to take it off and run with it. So I guess we'll have to see what exactly happens on Sunday. But let's move into the MX2 class and kind of highlight some of the things going on over there, because that is also a pretty interesting series to talk about, I feel like, because the momentum shifts have been so unique in the MX2 class that I'm kind of shocked to see it has once again flip-flopped. It seems like every time Jago Geerts wins a moto or two and starts to get the ball rolling, and it looks like he's going to, seize the series a little bit and start winning consistent motos and clawing points away from Tom Vial, then Vial just goes out there and says, no, that's not going to happen at all. So, looking back at the first round in Italy, it was Maxime Renault who won the Grand Prix. He went 2-1, which is out of nowhere. I didn't expect Maxime Renault to win, but he did have a podium earlier in the year, so I guess you could say that he's comfortable enough to run up front and be a force to be reckoned with. But he split moto wins with Jago Geerts. Jago Geerts went 1-3, and the off day, I guess, in the championship, I guess there was Tom Vial, who went 4-2, so he actually lost points to Geerts. It wasn't a ton, but he lost some points. And then we come into this Wednesday's race at Faenza again, and Geerts kind of rode a little bit like a shell of himself, like crashed a bunch and ended up going 3-9, I should say. Whereas Tom Vial found exactly what he needed to do and went 1-1, got two great starts, got out front early, put a big gap on everybody, and just kind of cruised to two race victories, which is exactly what Geerts needed to be doing, and he just doesn't ever seem like he can get the ball rolling to do that. So the gap is now out to 21 points that Vial has over Geerts. And I don't know where I sit on this championship either. I'm very up in the air like I am with MXGP, because on one hand, Vial seems to, every time he's down a little bit, respond very well and either win a Grand Prix or at least get really good points in comparison to Geerts, who has a rough day. But the problem is, I think Jago Geerts might actually be faster than him. And if that's the case, and Geerts can start just getting good starts consistently up front with Vial, running with him, putting the pressure on him, winning motos, bringing the points tally down, I don't think Vial is the type of rider that will not crack at all. I think at some point he may have a big off here and there, and that could cost him a lot of points. So to say that, Vial is suddenly fixed and he's going to go 1-1 from here on out is absolutely wrong here. I think these guys have been flip-flopping this series so much at this point, it's really either one of them could find the momentum to, get the ball rolling and take the championship lead away from the other. Now, the only reason I'm talking about just these two riders is because they do have a pretty significant championship lead on everybody else. There is a 50-point gap from Geerts back to Maxime Renault, who's moved into third in the championship with two consecutive podiums. So because of that, a 50-point gap is pretty large. As mentioned in the MXGP class, it's not insurmountable, but it's not, to me, I don't think of Renault as a guy that would claw that back. I was more or less looking at someone, if Thomas Kjær-Olsen was in that spot, I could maybe see it, or like a Ben Watson, but those guys are down in 7th and 8th, whereas you have Renault, up near the front. Jed Beaton moved into 4th in the championship. Mathis Poirame and Rowan van de Moosdijk have been very good riders for the F&H Kawasaki team, and I've actually been kind of disappointed in Ben Watson and Thomas Kjær-Olsen this year, because I thought that those two would absolutely be title contenders, and I know Watson came in with a little bit of an injury, as did Olsen, way back at the beginning of the season in March, but they had the time to recover, and they've both kind of come back into this rebirth of a series and not looked any of the part of the championship threat that they should have been. So bit of a disappointment out of them, but because of the shakeup in that championship dynamic and having some fresh faces up inside of the top 5 of the championship, it's really left Geerts and Vial at the front of this to take the series by the horns, as mentioned in the MXGP class. Again, I think those two guys are going to be it. I really do. I don't think that I see anybody else coming from behind to steal it away from them unless they both get hurt, which is a possibility. They're both still young, you know, frantic riders. They tend to occasionally ride a bit over their head. I think Vial has settled himself down from his rookie season just a little bit, but it is not uncommon to see a guy that is out front in the World Championship in the MX2 class throw it away. It's happened year after year. Herlings was a staple for doing it, but you even talk back in the day when, you know, Julian Lieber led the championship at one point and still crashed, and Dylan Ferrandis would fight for the championship and crash, and Tommy Sturl fights for the championship and crash, and, you know, it's just these guys, when they get into a championship fight for their first time, they're looking at an MX2 World Championship, it's a big deal. There's a lot of pressure. These teams are putting so much emphasis on winning this World Championship that sometimes that pressure can be more of a burden than a blessing, and it really gets to those guys. So because of that, I don't think that this is, you know, a walkaway win for both of them to just battle it out amongst each other. But as it has been so far, the status quo does appear to be that Vial and Geertz are going to square off and try to battle for this World Championship. And it's going to be a good one, I think, just as the MXGP class will be, because I think if Geertz can get the ball rolling again, if he can find some of the stuff that he was doing towards the end of the Latvian swing and make that more repeatable and, you know, consistently battle for a race win, get good starts, etc., etc., Vial is going to start shaking in his boots a little bit. I don't think that that kid is as headstrong, being, you know, only his second season in this class, just enough yet to really, you know, carry this thing all the way to the end. If he does, if he starts clicking off wins and he really takes this championship kind of in his own hands at this point, I kind of would be surprised. I think that you're going to see Vial slip up a little bit moving into the second half of the season, and I think you're going to see Geertz raise his level, particularly when they go to Lommel. I think that, you know, it's home track, obviously, Geertz being from Belgium, but Jago Geertz is a very good sand rider, no question about it, and Belgium has been where he has shined before, you know, when he was not battling in the championship fight, more or less. Belgium and Lommel and deeper sand tracks seem to be where Geertz was the man. I guess the one caveat to that is earlier this year when they went to Valkenswaard, you know, Geertz wasn't exactly the best rider on the track. Like, he was pretty good, but I wouldn't say that he was dominant compared to everybody else. I don't know. We'll see. The fact that we have such a weird schedule, we have this Faenza round to finish off the 3 races in Faenza. Then we have 3 races at Mantova towards the end of the month. And then they go to Spain for 1 Grand Prix and then come back to Belgium, I think, for a triple header at Lommel. And then they go to Pietra Murata, again, I think, for a triple header there. And they are still tentatively going to try to finish off the season in Argentina. When, I have no idea, but I still think that that one might be canned from the schedule. But we still have a lot of races on hand, and it's going to be a lot of repeat races where these guys are going to have a lot of track time to get dialed in, get their setups ready to go. And this Grand Prix of Romagna Italia at Faenza this Sunday in both classes is going to be a really peculiar one to watch. Curious to see who's going to take the reins in the MXGP class and be the championship leader after this one, because it could be Geyser or it could be Cairoli, and we'll see if Jago Geertz can get the ball rolling again to make things interesting in that MX2 division. But that's all I have got to say today so far. Like I said, I don't have as much information as I normally would about the championship, just because I haven't had much time to sit down and really pay that much attention to it. But I plan to get the ball rolling with that again, get you guys some more information about it, and hopefully these GP reviews are a consistent thing week after week again, or race after race, because they are going to be consistently coming hot and heavy, midweek races, all kinds of stuff like that thrown in here. So crazy MXGP season here in 2020, and suddenly the doors of opportunities have been burst wide open with the Jeffrey Herlings injury. So that's your lot from the MXGP of Faenza, heading to the MXGP of Romagna Italia at Faenza this Sunday. Hopefully you guys tune in and watch, but as always, I really appreciate you guys stopping by, watching another video here on Start Your Systems, and hope to see you guys in all of our future ones that we have. But it's Kellen signing off for now, and I'll see you guys in the next one. So long for now.